pressed the wrong button. No, I don't want to. Hope y'all are doing well. It'll probably take about 30 seconds for people to get in chat if they're going to show up at all. But I basically got a few minutes before I go pick up my son. And so I figured I'd just go online and talk to folks and see what's going on. Got something I'm going to be working on in the new year. This is not like a official announcement or anything like that. But once the dissertation is at least moving a little faster, I've got two chapters that I need to strongly revise, and another one I'm kind of in the tweaking phase. Also, let me know if this is coming through okay. Same setup as last time. If not, well, just let me know in the comments or in the sections like that. Mr. Fox, the Silver Fox, how you doing, brother? Good to see you. One thing I'm going to be doing, and it's kind of based on something I've just noticed. My denomination doesn't have a lot of material out for just anything. The joke is if people want to know what an American Baptist is, they don't Google it. They just talk to me. And I'm like, well, I'm cool with it. Hey, Slam. But I'm thinking I've got this series planned, and I've begun writing it, and it may be the basis for a book in the future. We'll see. But I want to just do videos, lecture style, about what is an American Baptist, what's our take on things. And of course, speaking, for an entire denomination, especially denomination of Baptists, is like herding a bunch of angry cats. It doesn't usually work very well, but I'll do it anyway. But one of the things I noticed with the previous video I did on what is an American Baptist is that my denomination has not done a really good job of kind of getting out there and telling folks what we are all about. And so the first video, I have several videos in mind. One, of course, just on Baptist distinctives. I'm not going to do one on the Trinity. I'm not going to do one on justification or anything like that. We're basically pretty Christian on that, if that makes sense. There's not a whole lot of distinctives there. Where we do differ with a lot of other Christian denominations is one, we are egalitarian when it comes to women in ministry, women's ordination. And so I'll be doing a video on that, kind of an American Baptist theology of ministry for women and men. Then I want to do a video, obviously you got to do believer's baptism, kind of an American Baptist take on that. Another one would be on what we call the sacraments or the Lord's Supper. So looking at that from an American Baptist perspective. There were a few more. One was on politics, kind of how does this American Baptist, who doesn't speak as the only representative, but as a representative, what do we think about politics and and voting, ideologies, all that sort of stuff? I want to focus on that. Then a video on sexual ethics and that sort of question. How do we, how do American Baptists view that? How do we view the church? Are we tend to be we're very congregationalist. We're very democratic in the proper sense of the term, of course. So a video on that would be interesting. Kind of how do we view authority and those sorts of things. And so I think a series on that would be really, really cool. Our Methodist Baptist, they would say no. They would very much say no. God bless them. No, they're far more sacramental. They're far more high church. They're far more liturgical. Their church structure is much more different. What's good, boss? So we're very different on those things. I'm very friendly with the Methodists because I believe Wesley was basically right about everything except for his view of the church and his view of baptism. And he has some weird stuff about Mary, which I'm like, seems like it's more of a holdover from kind of his ecumenical kind of theology, which I'm all in favor of. I'm not down with that. So that'd be what I'd be doing. Excuse me. I'm just kind of doing videos, maybe an hour long, maybe an hour and a half. Maybe do a few interviews with people. I have a couple folks I can talk to, get them on, engage with them, talk with them, and kind of just start creating stuff that's not Southern Baptist or Liberal Baptist or Reformed Baptist, but something that's distinctly American Baptist. And so that'll be the goal for over the next couple, probably months at this point, because I got to do research and I want to script them and I want to put them out. Oh, the hair is on point today. Look at that. So there's that. But yeah, hope y'all are doing well. This is fun. There's 5 people here. Oh my gosh, that's 5 people that should be doing something else, spending time here. So what else? If you have any questions or comments, of course, leave them in the chat, and I'll engage there. But what else? We would be doing a video also on Christian freedom. What does that mean? I say that someone who, has no problem with Christians enjoying a certain freedom with certain things. But so, talking about those sorts of things, I think that would be fun. I think that'd be informative. Getting folks interested in American Baptist, our denomination, is really cool. And we're really diverse denomination, which has a lot of pros and has a lot of cons. So engaging with that, I think, would be a lot of fun and very informative. Help me figure through some things and get them out there. Let's see. What else should I talk about? So I got that. Oh, Merry Christmas. 'Tis the season. Question: Are you going to do? Sorry, let me see. Sorry, for some reason it just drops them all. Live chat. Show chat. Oh, there we go. Okay. Are you going to do a video maybe talking about the Americans shifting towards more traditional forms of Christianity, like so many people converting to Eastern Orthodoxy or Anglicanism? Yeah. I could do that. I think the issue there is I think there are a few things at play there. One, people are hungry for ritual. They're hungry for the why of doing things, and that's something I've stressed at our church. Why do we do X? Why do we do Y? Why do we do Z? Not just doing things, but why we do them and what they mean. So becoming more ritual and transformational and through sanctification and stuff like that, talking about that sort of stuff. I think what happens with a lot of people is when you come out of a religious tradition or set of thought or anything like that, I think a lot of people, because they haven't looked at other stuff or have been fighting with other people, when you leave a worldview that is totalizing, for example, Reformed Baptist, right? So if someone is Reformed, and that carries with it a certain type of community, way of thought, epistemology, mindset, practice, how you view others. So, how a Reformed Baptist might treat Methodists or even Presbyterians, it can be, very, very combative. And so when you come out of that religious tradition, you almost swing in the opposite direction because you're looking for stability, you're looking for something that you can hold on to and kind of just get with. So I think that's a big issue. I think also there is a certain allure, and I mean that positively. There's an allure towards mysticism, something different, while that's not heretical or crazy or anything like that, right? So I think a lot of people I think what you're seeing is a lot of low church or like Baptist, non-denominational, Pentecostal, folks moving to Anglicanism or Roman Catholicism or Eastern Orthodoxy because it's completely different. And so my fear is not that people are going there. My rule is go where there's food to eat and where you can be fed and where you can feed others, theologically. There are limits to that, but that's kind of my general principle. I don't have a problem with someone. I don't use the term conversion when someone becomes Roman Catholic. If a Protestant becomes Roman Catholic or Roman Catholic becomes Protestant, I don't say conversion. To me, that's you just changed your mind about something. It may have a big impact on your life, but calling it conversion, you convert to Islam out of Christianity or you convert to Christianity out of Islam. Those are different religions. So I think that's a big deal. And a lot of people, once you've people are looking for a stable, new experience, and that's specifically like my generation, mid millennials, right? And so I think that's something people are looking for. All right, let's see. I saw another question. Sorry about that. Let's see. Random question. From Dalton? What do you believe are specific topics in theology that are vastly undervalued or neglected by your average Christian? Ooh. I read a phrase or a term in a book like literally 15 minutes ago by I think it's Robert Creech, and it's I forget the exact title, but it's like pastoral theology in the Baptist tradition or something like that. Um, and he quoted someone in there using the phrase. I'm gonna butcher the phrase, but it was the idea of instead of um, agnostic theist, it was something like ignostic theist. Ig as in ignorant. So the biggest issue I think with the church is the church doesn't have. Okay, here's the biggest issue. It's not an issue of theology, but it does address it. Is pastors need to be theologians again. We need to bring back pastor scholars, pastor theologians, people who preach on Sunday, teach Bible study, contribute to scholarship, and educate and transform their congregation. Um, the biggest lie that I've discovered in pastoral ministry, which was told to me early on, was we don't need, the church doesn't need theology, it needs Jesus. And the second half of that statement is true. Uh, and there's some weight to the first statement because at the end of the day, you're not going to preach analytic theology and Christology from the pulpit, but you should be informed about it if that topic comes up, for example. So I think the biggest issue is that a lot of people are just deeply unaware of what the Bible is, what Christian theology and Christian practice is, and a lot of what we see now is more the church becoming a community center, not a place of devotion, a place of learning, a place of education. It's not to say community is bad. We need it. It's vital to who we are. We need to spend time together. We need to engage and eat together and live together, mourn together, laugh together. We need those things. But the pastor must be a theologian. He or she must be teaching the congregation, educating them. This is where I'll give like the Reformed tradition a lot of props. The PCUSA specifically in the PCA, really pushing catechism, understanding that sort of stuff, dogmatics. Like those things are vital for church, and I think your average church person needs more than just a Sunday sermon. He or she needs, needs needs the word. And so I think that would be something that would really address the question. And thus, another issue is dealing with how we, and this is maybe the second part of it to answer your question, Dalton, which is a really good question, is taking, um, and the Wesleyans did this really well, was taking doctrine and applying it to daily life. So the idea of being holy is not just a far-flung hope or idea kind of in the ether, it's an everyday thing. So I'm preaching through the book of Revelation, and instead of talking about the millennium and all this sort of stuff, I'm talking about um, the politics of the Roman Empire. I'm talking about sexual practices of the Roman Empire as compared to, in contrast with Jesus' sexual ethics or Paul's belief in what Jesus said and that sort of stuff. And you begin to see world building in the sense of we can see the world for what it is. We can see it as a construct. We can see it and live in it. We taste it. We smell it. We see it. And getting people to engage that with their whole heart and mind. And I think merging head and heart is very vital. And so there were a few more questions. So hopefully I at least began to answer your question. Sorry, I'm looking for all of these. I wish the chat would just stay up here. That would be so cool if it could just do that. All right, what would you say are the strongest arguments for being Credo Baptist, in my opinion? It's you have the didactic text about baptism being commanded, repentance, all that sort of stuff. I think my issue with paedobaptism is that I joked with a friend was when it says his whole household was baptized, for example. I was like, sure. Do you think there were infants there or children there? And because that's a big assumption, doesn't mean they aren't. But we're having to interpret this so it's not just as clear cut. Don't worry about Dalton; it's all good. Um, so for me, I don't think children. I don't think infants, and I'll use infants for like under. Oh gosh, how do we even parse that? Little ones, little ones, um, have sufficient understanding for what they do. I don't think they understand sin because they haven't developed it. Um, I jokingly say to people, I affirm original sin, but I do not affirm original guilt. So I already don't have an issue because I don't think baptism saves. So, or at least I haven't been persuaded to think otherwise. Is probably a better way of saying that. So I think baptism is an overt confession and for repentance and forgiveness of sins, and it's an inauguration into new life. And baptism is fundamentally Christological on that point, and pneumatological. It's basically you put that with the doctrine of God almost, as well as salvation. So for me, I don't find the arguments against credo. So what I would say is this: I think the Bible seems to teach credo baptism through and through. There are a few texts that are more difficult to kind of incorporate, and I'm willing to just have those, which is why I don't say it's wrong to baptize your kids. I just say I wouldn't baptize Nolan, if that makes sense. I'm happy to have people who come to my church. There are a few Methodists at my church, and if they've been baptized as infants, I respect and affirm that. I have no problem with that. That's not a thing for me. Um, and so I just don't find the text used in support of infant baptism to be, and the theology that kind of comes along behind that to be just convincing. I think baptism is fundamentally about the forgiveness of sins and about the profession and confession of Jesus Christ as Lord. And I think that's for sinners who are repenting and all of that. So, and yeah, let me see, Dalton. Don't worry about it. It's all good. That's why I'm here. I've got like 15 more minutes. Speaking of catechism, do you think there is a good tool to use for this? I've owned a few Armenian conference and but no. Yeah, I'd really love to see. I'd really love to see kind of a Wesleyan, or I mean, you have the Methodists and the Anglicans have stuff like that. The problem is, it may just be we need to make one. It may just be we need to make our own catechism. Um, yeah, I don't know off the top of my head. With Nolan, this is going to sound weird. I mean, we do certain things. We have certain practices, but we try to show him. This is going to sound silly. We show him Bible Project videos, and it's not the same as catechizing your kid. I'm not making that claim or anything of the sort, but there is a sense in which finding stuff that'll speak to him that he can understand, because he's very visual, but also he loves Bible Project, and so that helps him understand God and how the Old Testament works, at least a little bit here and there. We have a few small books about teaching your child about the Trinity and all that sort of stuff, and so I don't know if we, meaning I'll speak for myself as an American Baptist, I don't think we have anything. And Arminians, I think, Wesleyan Arminians, I think we need to maybe invest in something like that. The problem, of course, is not all Arminians agree, or Wesleyan Arminians, or you got the Provisionists or the Free Will Baptist. I can probably turn it up, and I can probably get a little closer. Cosmic Septic. Is that a little better? That's probably a little better. So what else? As I'm leaning back, I'm on the couch. Yeah, it's a good question, Dalton. So in short, I don't know. I would have to look. Maybe we need to just make one. Question: what do you think about the necessity of eliminating or greatly minimizing the distinction of OT, NT, and have better conversation about church and the entire story? So I'm rereading the question, boss. I think one thing to do, and this has to happen in the local church, right? You have to preach from the Old Testament. It was Jesus's Bible. And so one of the things that we need to do is, I think we need to bring back, every pastor, he or she should preach like okay, how do I say this? There's Old Testament, New Testament, obviously, but I think your pastor must preach like a biblical theologian, like must be doing biblical theology. That is, taking the threads or the storylines or the echoes in the Old Testament and giving them full voice and power in the New Testament in terms of fulfillment, but letting the Old Testament speak on its own terms. And so I think rather than saying that was then and this is now, saying that was then and here's what that means for us now. I think that um, I think that would help. I mean, one thing I did in for one of the first Bible studies at church when I started there, or at least when I was an interim pastor there, was we went through Genesis 1, yeah, 1 through 3, talked about, and we used Genesis 1 through 3 in conversation about ethics. So we talked about creation, we talked about gender and sex, we talked about war, we talked about death, and just it wasn't super dense or in depth, but we were able to kind of go through that. And so knowing your Old Testament will help you understand Jesus, and that's what I've tried to push to folks. I'm not qualified to do a series on the Old Testament preaching wise. I can preach from parts of it, but I couldn't preach through Isaiah. Like I'm not conversant in that, and I would find it honestly very difficult to preach through Isaiah just with the amount of scholarship that I would feel I need to be reading to preach it well. And so I think preaching biblical theology is probably the best way to go. And that way you're not talking about that was then or that's that or this piece over here. It's like, no, you're viewing it all as a whole, which I think is needed. So a few more questions. Let's see. I propose we pressure the church Orthodox Creed. We can do minor edits like the Presbyterians did in the 1700s. Yeah, the Presbyterians just stole everything. So as a Baptist, I'm completely fine with stealing stuff. All right, let's see. Question. I've been reading a bit of Wesley and Clark and some others. Are Wesleyans just against double imputation, or are they against imputation as a concept? Let me reread that. Make sure I understand what you're saying, Cosmic. As I understand Wesley, so this is going to say, I'm not trying to be crass. There's a difference between Wesley and Wesleyans. Because it depends on the Wesleyan. You've got the liberal United Methodist, the moderate evangelical global Methodist, you got the conservative free Methodist, you got the conservative Nazarenes. So I'm not quite certain how to answer that specifically. I've not read a lot on imputation. My sense is, it's just a sense, is that I don't think they're against imputation as a concept. I think Wesley, here's a truckload of salt for you as I say this. So bit of salt, no, truckload of salt. I think Wesley was probably in favor of double imputation, or Wesley probably didn't care for double imputation because he probably wasn't a huge fan of, last I checked, predestination, or at least in the Calvinist sense. So that might be an issue there, but I'm not sure. So, yeah, the imputationist issues more arise out of probably New Testament scholarship that basically see the textual evidence or foundation for double imputation as being very slim. And that would be personally my critique of imputation, is I think textually I think it's a very flimsy thing. Doesn't mean it's theologically false, but as a New Testament guy, I'm kind of like, it's a flimsy board. It's like you can fit rows on that if you're sitting at sea. You can fit rows on that piece of plywood, but you can't fit both her and Jack. So, if that makes sense. Let's see. I'll come preach to the prophet books at your church. Please do, or maybe have you do a Bible study on it. By the way, yeah. But yeah, good questions, good thoughts. Yeah. Voice text sure does interest. Yes, it does. Ooh. So what else is there? This is what they mean when they talk about no dead air. But when you have a bad back, there it is. What else? So yeah, I think really beginning to bring out material on American Baptist theology and polity and piety would be really good. And I think I would love to see more Arminians and Wesleyans getting involved in the online sphere. I know Method Ministries, Lucas Curcio is doing it. I've been on his channel. The Society of Evangelical Arminians is doing stuff. You have Matt Riley or Matt O'Reilly. I can't remember exactly if there's an O there, but His channel is really cool. I forget the exact title of it. It's kind of like Gavin Ortland's channel. There's something in there. It's not Truth Unites, but it's something like that. But Matt O'Reilly, he did. I think he's at Wesley Biblical Seminary, and he's a pastor in, I want to say, Birmingham, Alabama. I think, at least he was when I talked to him. But I'd love to see more Wesleyans and Armenians getting just involved online outside of just debates. Like you sit down, oh, a new debate is dropping. James White or I don't know, Jeff Durbin or who's some like reform bros, you know. Oh, cool. Who are they debating? Oh, you couldn't get this person, this person, this person. You couldn't get anyone. It's like, it's just like, okay. All right. So I think doing that will help a lot. Who would win in a fist fight, John or Charles? Well, John was out actually doing work while Charles was writing all those hymns. So my guess is John got more sunlight and touched more grass and thus would probably win. But imagine the hymn that Charles would write about that after. That could be fun. Let's see. What else? Time for a reading part of the Hebrew final. You got this, boss. Enjoy your Hebrew final. Enjoy your Hebrew. I got A's in Hebrew and I don't remember much of my Hebrew. I'd have to really go back. Yeah, the Calvinists have us on sheer quantity and pretty high. Sorry, I couldn't see all of it. I don't know why it just disappears. And pretty high quality. Yeah, I mean, some of them do. I think what they do well is they kind of suck all the oxygen out of the room. Well, the joke is we can't all be G3. That's true. But the joke, this is going to sound, I'm being a little snarky when I say this. Calvinists are kind of like woke leftists, and I'm being silly when I say that, who don't have jobs and can go do all these things. They can go do their G3s and their summits and all that sort of stuff. Whereas Wesleyans, Armenians, non-Calvinists have day jobs, and we're out doing other stuff. It's kind of the joke. But I mean, I don't know if we need conferences. Conferences are kind of, I mean, people don't have money these days. They don't have time to travel. Imagine telling someone in California, hey, fly to Dallas for 3 days. That's a lot of money and that's a lot of time, especially with families and stuff. So I think maybe instead we just start, and the issue, of course, is networking and getting people involved in all of that. But one thing we probably should just start doing is making friends. Part of Steve Lawson's problem was that he didn't have a day job. I'm trying to keep a few jokes that I've told to myself because I'm trying to be a good person. I'll keep that to myself. That is funny, though. That is very funny. What else? But yeah, I think once, and here's the issue too. You're seeing a lot of Calvinism, and I'm talking internet. I'm not talking your Reformed Anglicans, anything like that. I'm talking kind of your Theo bros, right? We all know who that is, or who they are. I think you're going to see a lot of them kind of burn out because once you act a certain way for so long, and it's kind of like this. Clay, if you're clay or mud or something like that, you can do you don't ever have to worry about it cracking because it's pliable as long as you keep it wet and keep it out of the sun. Once you put clay and form it in a pot and put it in the sun to dry for a few days or in an oven, whatever you do, it becomes rigid, and the problem then becomes if it cracks, you can't really put it back together. I mean, I'm sure you got glue, but you know the analogy, right? So the difference between being basically mud on the ground that can be formed into anything, or something that is so rigid that if you look at it funny, it cracks or breaks. I think we're seeing that within the Reformed community. You have some that are just like that, and then some that are like that. And I think the hope is that that by talking to other Christians, Methodists, American Baptists, Pentecostals, that instead of being this rigid pot that can be very easily cracked and foundationally broken, or this kind of muddy putty right over here, begin to see that maybe there's some way to meet in the middle. And I'm hoping that if anything, we can get a lot of them to kind of reform and relax, chill out a little bit, and at the end of the day, just be friends. Because that's at the end of the day, that's kind of the thing we need most is, and that's I think how Methodists and Wesleyans and Baptists like me will grow is not through sheer conquering or through algorithms, but through being friends. And so maybe at the end of the day, this video is about why we need to be friends. And maybe that's putting aside the petty differences and arguing in good faith about actual differences and enjoying a cigar together or a beer together or a meal together or a movie together or being in a reading group together. Maybe those are ways we can begin to foster better communication and leave the animus and the vitriol behind. So I don't know. Maybe that's probably not exactly what you're thinking, but maybe at the end of the day, that's what we need. Maybe having just friendship again. Make Christians have friends again. Let me put that on a t-shirt. All right, so I'm gonna hop off and rest for a few minutes before I go pick up my son and then make lunch for him. Thanks y'all for being here. The Lord be with you. The Lord keep you. Amber, praying for your Hebrew. You got this. Nail it. And y'all have a good one. Take care. Now, where do I push the button here? This is always the awkward part where I reveal how old I truly am. Where's the button? There it is. See y'all.